Hey 7X, today you are going to be solving for angle measures algebraically, which means you're going to have to create and solve an algebraic equation, just like we did with complementary and supplementary and vertical angles. But now you're going to really need to know the definitions of alternate interior, alternate exterior, corresponding angles, vertical angles, and supplementary angles, because those definitions are going to help you create your algebraic equation. So if we look at the first one, there are a lot of steps to solve for these angle types. So I have all the steps listed out here that you have to complete in your assignment. We're going to go through it together. All right, so step one is to identify the type of angles that we have. So here's our diagram. I have this angle right here that's labeled 9x plus 1, and this angle right here that's labeled 11x minus 23. So your first step is to identify the type of angle that you have here. Now, the type of angle that we have are corresponding angles. So we are going to type that in this text box. Now, it's great that you know if those are corresponding angles, but you need to know the significance of corresponding angles. Well, what does corresponding angles mean? I have all of the definitions listed here for you. I want you guys, after you identify the type of angle, highlight the piece of information that's going to help you create your algebraic equation. So I know these are corresponding angles because they're in the same position on just two different lines. They're both in the top right, making them corresponding. We need to know corresponding angles are congruent, which means they're equal to each other. So this angle 9x plus 1 and this angle 11x minus 23 are equal to each other. So I need to create an algebraic equation. And you guys are going to type that in this text box below. So since they're equal to each other, the first angle, 9x plus 1, is going to go on one side of the equal sign, and the second angle, 11x minus 3, is going to go on the other side of the equal sign. Okay, so we just created our equation. This is just like our vertical angles unit that you guys did a couple days ago. Now we need to solve this equation. So remember, when we're solving equations, our goal is to get the variable all by itself. This was an 8th grade topic that we learned in our equations unit. We have variables on both sides of the equal sign. When that's the case, the first step is to get all your variables to one side of the equal sign. I always told you guys I like to work with the smaller amount of variables first, just so I don't have to deal with any negative numbers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this 9x over to this side. How I'm going to do that is I'm simply going to subtract 9x to both sides of my equation. Remember, what we do to one side of the equation, we must also do to the other. So I subtract 9x on both sides. When I do that, these 9's are going to cancel out. I bring down the 1. I bring down the equal sign. Then I'm subtracting 11x minus 9x, and I get 2x. I do not subtract negative 23 minus 9x. Those are not like terms. They cannot be subtracted. So we always line them up with its like term. So again, 11x minus 9x gives me 2x, and then I bring down the minus 23. Okay, now I have a simple two-step equation here that I have to solve. Again, we got to get our variable all by itself. So our next step is going to be to get rid of this minus 23. Well, the opposite of minusing 23 is add 23 on both sides. So 1 plus 23 is 24. Bring down the 2x, and these 23's are going to cancel out. Now our last and final step is to divide by the coefficient, the number in front of the variable. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2, and when I do that, I get 12 is equal to x, or x is equal to 2. So I now know that x is equal to 12, or I'm sorry, x is equal to 12. But I'm not done. That's my value of x. That's not the measure of these angles, which brings me to step 3. Step 3 is to substitute the value of x into the given angles to calculate their numerical value, which are these text boxes over here. So just like we did in the past, I'm going to take that 12 and plug it into this expression where I see x. Okay, just like that. Now I have to simplify this. Remember, we have to follow our order of operations when we simplify, so I have to multiply before I add. When I do that, 9 times 12 is 108. 108 plus 1 is 109. So that tells me that the measure of that first angle is 109 degrees. Okay, not done. We got one more angle measure, which is 11x minus 23. So again, I'm going to plug in 12 where I see x. Then I'm going to multiply first. 11 times 12 is 132. 132 minus 23 is 109 degrees. Well, you might be asking, hey, well, why did we get the same degree measure? Because, guys, remember, these are corresponding angles, and corresponding angles are equal or are congruent. So, of course, they should have the same angle measure. Okay, but we still got to make sure that we're showing all of our work and plugging in those x values into both of those expressions. And that also helps us check our work, because if we plugged that number for x in and we got different degrees, then we know we did something wrong, because we know that they have to be equal to each other. Okay? Okay, let's now look at number 2. All right, so step 1 is to identify the two angles that we have here. Okay, we have this angle 4x plus 44 and this angle 2x plus 58. Well, these are supplementary angles. What we need to know about supplementary angles, please highlight that they add up to be 180 degrees. So I'm going to use that fact to help me create my algebraic equation. So together, these two have to equal 180 degrees. So I'm simply going to put the two angles, add them together, and set them equal to 180. Okay, now I have to solve this equation. Well, my first step to solve this equation is to combine my like terms. Remember, when we are combining our like terms, look at the sign in front of the term, because that's what's going to tell you if it's positive or negative. So my first set of like terms are 4x and positive 2x. So I'm going to add 4x plus 2x, and I'm going to get 6x. Then I'm going to add my next set of like terms, which is positive 44 and positive 58. 44 plus 58 is 102, and I bring down the equal sign and I bring down the 180. Now my next step, subtract the constant on both sides. So I'm subtracting 102 on both sides, bring down the 6x. The 102s are going to cancel. 180 minus 102 is 78. Which brings us to our last step, to divide by the number in front of the variable. So I'm going to divide by 6 on both sides, and I get x is equal to 13. Okay, only halfway there. I now have to take that x equals 13 and plug it into both angle measures where I see x. So my first angle measure is 4x plus 44. So instead of writing x, I'm going to plug in that 13. When I do that, I first have to multiply before I add, and 4 times 13 is 52, and 52 plus 44 is 96. So the measure of that first angle is 96 degrees. Okay, second angle measure is 2x plus 58. So again, instead of writing x, I'm going to plug in 13 where I see x, and then I got to multiply first. 2 times 13 is 26. 26 plus 58 is 84. So the measure of angle ABC is 84 degrees. And again, you can check to see if you are correct by simply adding these two degree measures up and see if they equal to 180, because they're supplementary, so we know they have to equal 180. And in this case, 96 plus 84 does in fact equal 180 degrees, so we know we are correct. Okay, next one. Step 1, identify the type of angles. These two angles, 2x plus 5 and 3x minus 33, are vertical angles. Well, what do we know about vertical angles? Vertical angles are congruent, which means they are equal to each other. Okay, since these two angles are equal to each other, I'm going to set them equal to each other, meaning this angle is going to go on one side of the equal sign and this angle is going to go on the other side of the equal sign to look like this. Okay, now I have an equation that has variables on both sides. So my first step is to get all my variables to one side. So I'm going to subtract the 2x on both sides of the equations just so I don't have to deal with any negative numbers. When I do that, I bring the 2x's are going to cancel. I bring down the 5. 3x minus 2x is 1x, and I bring down the minus 33. Okay, now I have a simple two-step equation. I'm going to add 33 to both sides. 5 plus 33 is 38. Bring down the 1x, and the negative 33 plus 33 cancels each other out. Now, last but not least, I'm going to divide both sides by the 1 just to get that variable all by itself. And when I do that, I get x is equal to 38. Okay, but again, we're not done. 38 is not the angle measure, it's just the value of the variable. So now I have to take that value of x, which is 38, and plug it into both my angle measures where I see x. So I plugged in the 38. I'm first going to multiply 2 times 38. which gives me 76, and then 76 plus 5 is 81. So I know the measure of that first angle is equal to 81 degrees. Now I have to figure out the measure of my second angle. So again, I'm going to take that 38 and plug it in where I see x. I'm going to multiply first. 3 times 38, which is 114, and then 114 minus 33 gives me 81 degrees as well. Again, we got the same angle measure, which we absolutely should because they are vertical and they are equal to each other. So yes, the two angle measures should be the same. Okay, next one, identify the type of angles first. We have this angle 14x minus 13 and this angle 8x plus 5. Well, these two angles are in the interior or the inside of these parallel lines, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal, which makes them alternate interior angles. What do we need to know about alternate interior angles? The important piece of information is that alternate interior angles are congruent, which means they're equal to each other. Since they're equal to each other, we are again going to take the first angle, which is 14x minus 13, put an equal sign, and then type in the second angle, which is 8x plus 5, just like I did here. Again, we have variables on both sides. I'm going to get all the variables to one side by subtracting 8 on both sides. 14 minus 8 is, 14x minus 6x. 14x minus 8x is 6x. Bring down the minus 13. The 8s are going to cancel. Bring down the equals 5. Okay, now I'm going to add 13 to both sides. Bring down the 6x. The 13s cancel. And 5 plus 13 is 18. Divide by 6 on both sides, and we get x is equal to 3. Okay, I'm now going to take that x is equal to 3 and plug it into both of these angle expressions. Okay, I simply have to multiply before I can subtract. So 14 times 3 is 42. 42 minus 13 is 29. So I know that first angle is equal to 29 degrees. Now I'm going to come to the next angle. I'm going to plug in 3 where I see x. I'm first going to multiply 8 times 3, which is 24, and then 24 plus 5 gives us 29. So the measure of that second angle is equal to 29 degrees as well, as it should because they are alternate interior angles, which means they're equal to each other. Okay, we'll do one more. First, identify the type of angle relationship that we have. Well, this angle 6x plus 13 and this angle 8x minus 19 are on the exterior of these parallel lines, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal, making them alternate exterior angles. We need to know that alternate exterior angles are congruent to each other, so we highlighted in that text box. Congruent means equal. So again, I'm going to set these two expressions or these two angle measures equal to each other like I did here. I'm going to get all my variables on one side by subtracting 6x on both sides of my equation. The 6x's are going to cancel. I'm going to bring down the 13, bring down the equal sign. 8x minus 6x is 2x, and I'm going to bring down the minus 19. Okay, then I'm going to add 19 to both sides. 13 minus 19 is 32. I'm going to bring down the equal sign. I'm going to bring down the 2x, and the 19s are going to cancel. Then last but not least, I'm going to divide both sides of my equation by 2, and I get 16. So I know x is equal to 16. Almost done. I'm going to take that 16 and plug it into both of my angle measures in these text boxes. Instead of typing in x, I'm going to type in 16. So 6 times 16 is 96, and 96 plus 13 is 109. So the measure of that first angle is 109 degrees. Now I'm going to do that second angle. We should kind of already see what the angle measure should be since they're alternate exterior angles, but we still need to check just to make sure we didn't make any silly mistakes. So instead of typing in x again, I'm going to type in 16, and 8 times 16 gives us 128, and then 128 minus 19 gives us 109, which is exactly what we expected and what we wanted to because we know alternate exteriors are congruent or equal to each other. Okay, guys, you are now going to do the assignment on today's Google Classroom. Please make sure you are filling in all the boxes as I did. You need to type in the type of angles. You need to highlight the piece of information that's going to help you set up your algebraic equation. You need to type in all of your work into this text box. And then last but not least, you need to find the actual angle measure by substituting in that value of x into the expression. Okay, guys, please, if you have any questions, reach out to me and I will get back to you immediately.